everyone. So pleased you're here. And we're going to take a couple minutes as we get going to get settled and coming into the room, as we will need to do because I'm receiving a lot of information. And as usual, when I begin to receive the information, we will have a message on the screen that you're each supposed to study. So let's come into the room. We're going to take a few deep breaths. There's so much energy in your world right now that we need to center. Big breath. Hold it for just a bit. Slowly let it go. Feel the energy move down. Always moving down. Another big breath. Hold it for just a bit. Now let it go. It's white light beaming right through your forehead, down through your body. One more breath. Much more relaxed now. Let it go. Slowly, slowly. We are so pleased you're here. And again, as we've always said, we have waited for you your entire lives. And today, we know that more of you will understand that. Even in the past, more of you have come to see this and started to recognize it as your world is moving through what we told you would be a restructuring. Now, many of you are in disbelief right now. What you're in disbelief is of yourselves. You see, we gave you a message this morning. We wanted to put all this together because, as we've said, we always go to great lengths to make sure that you understand and can accept the information we are imparting. So this morning we said, self-love has always been and is the goal. It's the only goal. It is the only goal. Now, we used it that way because we are talking about for the existence of humankind. As long as you have been on the earth, as long as you have inhabited the earth, this has been true. The only goal that each of you had individually was self-love. And why did you have that, do you think? Because you knew that if you were to actualize self-love, that then you would be choosing to complete your original goal, was connecting to all that is, the universe, God, whatever that is that you speak of, that's where you're going. That's why you're here now. It is not about what's going on in the world. We know you think that it is about everything that is going on out there, but it is about everything that is going on within you. And we're going to have this make sense. We have told you that we gave you a program called Your Life Operating Instructions in 2012. And we keep talking about it because you have this disbelief in your rightness to be in the world. To a degree, you each do. You would have to have that because you're exploring something new this time. Now, we're saying this because if you look at your world, I mean, this is why last time, if you remember, we had you study history. Go back and look at some photos and see what your world might have looked at thousands and thousands of years ago, because that's what you're doing now. You're creating something new. You're repeating it again. You see, you're creating a new world. We said that you are here now to usher that in. However, you can only do that. You can only help if you decide to honor who you are. That is what we mean. Now, you think that we made this up and it couldn't possibly happen. We told Roger to use the message that's on the screen. We told him yesterday when Stan asked him, what are we going to use? Roger never knows right away. And we said, okay, here, use that one. And then he looked at the message. Now, we want you to get this. He looked at the message and he studied that. He looked at that last line. He goes, what does that mean? We said, don't worry about it. You'll know tomorrow. Each of you has had that happen in your life. See, you have had something implanted in you that you're meant to actualize, and you were meant to do it now. You were meant to do it at this time. There are no accidents, not even in the timing, you see. The timing that you meant to actualize who you are is occurring now, because if you do that, you start to manifest the world that you wanted to see and that all of us wanted to see, because that's what's within you. We know that. We've seen it. We felt it. We see it all the time. We have Roger tell you. But the convincing of it is really challenging, because convincing him was challenging. He could not figure out what does that last sentence mean? And you have to understand, everything that we have given him has been this direct, even the quotation marks. He hears us very clearly and he'll write it down. He doesn't know what any of it means at that time. He does now, but he did not know then. None of you knew then. None of you knew when you were born precisely what you were going to evolve into. But we will tell you this, and this is for absolute sure. You are here on the earth at this time because you want to make a big difference. There's no other way that your world could look the way that it does unless it was designed for you to actualize who you are. That's why it's here, and that's why it's been challenging for you. Now, we said that on this day, we were going to talk about how to embody your new world. And you know what you have to do first? Is let go of the old one. And that old one is you. It is where you thought you were so limited and that you couldn't do much and that you weren't important and you didn't matter. Well, now is the time you will, because that's the change that has happened in your world. Now, we're not the only ones speaking of this, and many people, many of those in your world now are quite aware of what's happening. There are great groups of people coming together to usher in this new world, but there are also so many more humans who are looking at the world and thinking everything is falling apart. It is not. You are here to make that difference. However, it won't happen unless, again, you decide to honor yourself. All the talks we've given you, we've said that you use fear and doubt to move through your life to get to love, to get to self-love. Because see, when you get there, when you actualize, you start to see that, oh, we're all the same. And that's what we've been trying to do. And that's why the goal has always been self-love for every single person, you see. That's the part you didn't understand completely, because you will look at other people and you'll think they're not trying to do that. Yes, they are, because they're helping you. You're looking at others, as we've always spoken of, and you're making comparisons and differences. That's purposeful. You were meant to do that so that you could own who you are. But see, the second step is owning who you are. You've had trouble with that. This is why you're here. And this is why we told Roger to do a webinar, a little training next week. We said, talk about how to move through fear, blame, and doubt, which are the things that has controlled his life, and probably yours to a degree, which is why you'll be listening. But we want to say, we want you to hear this, the thing that you have that's in front of you, you're supposed to do. And you're meant to do it, and you have the ability, you have the talent, you have the skills, and you have to stop doubting yourself, because this is a new time. This is a new world that you have moved into, and the way that you embody the new world is by choosing to let go of your old self. That's what you're doing here. Roger had to do that just today, meaning he had to move away from a relationship that he knew he was using. He's done this most of his life. He will, many of you have done this. You will attach yourself to certain situations and relationships because they become distractions for you, because you are afraid of knowing who you are, because it might overwhelm you. It might be too big. It might be too much. And you think you can't embody that. And we're saying this because we've been struggling. We had Roger go through this his entire life. Why do you think he's talking about it so much? He thinks that each of you think that you're just living right here and you just have this only this life. But we know that there are many others who have had connections and are remembering things that you put away a long time ago, which are your ancient memories, because you each have them. You may not access them in this lifetime because it might not be what you were here to do now, but it was for Roger. So we had him see these different things going on in different experiences, different existences, to bring sense to it now. Because it just totally confused him, as it has many of you. Let's talk about this. We told him when he was going to put out this program, he said, okay, I've got to do it. I'm going to put it at this price. we want you all to hear this. This is really, really important because this is about the change that is happening in your world now. We said, okay, we had to convince them to do it first, see, because that's the doubt again. You each have that. You think that what you were given was not as valuable as what someone else has. And that's a total lack of understanding of your DNA, of where you are as humans. You always are connected to everything that has existed before. When we began with your life operating instructions in January of 2012, we said infinite intelligence. You all have it. You just don't choose to access it or allow it to come in all the time because sometimes you don't believe it. Now, you are in a different place now. And that's what we want you to get. You must start to accept the brilliance, the genius that is within you. The entire process that we took Roger through in this program that we keep speaking of was having him break down his old ideas about who he was. And that is what that last message means. And each of you has this. You have never done anything wrong. You see, because you were just trying to figure out where you were going. And so all the things that you've done in your life that failed, that you thought you did were wrong, no. Because your intention was to discover yourself. When we gave Roger this information and he started to put it together, he started with a book, and the book was going to be called Becoming You. That's what you're each doing, becoming yourselves. But you have a lot of stuff going on right now. And we want you to understand it because you are working through a collective unconsciousness. That's what it was that has been in your society, in your world for decades, for eons. And it's coming up for review now. And that's why this shift is happening. That's why the reconstruction is happening. That's why the balance of power is changing. This is why we talked about power so much this morning. Now, it's a different world and you each have to accept it. On the way back from his brunch this morning, we had Roger hear a video, and it was about using the word God. And if you've noticed, we do not invoke that word very much. See, because you didn't always use that word. We're talking about humans. You didn't know because you didn't even know what it meant. But then what happens as you develop your societies and your beliefs and your ideas and your religions, you use certain words to separate yourselves from others and to make yourself more or usually less. That's what you do. You separate yourself. You do it by races. You do it by countries. You do it by gender. You've done it forever. And this is a new time. In 2012, it was signaling a shift into a new dimension that you are beginning to see now. We say beginning because it's going to take a while to move into these new ways of being, because it's going to cause it. We need more of you to release yourselves. We told Roger, we have this great idea. If you can have people become empowered and know who they were and start living their lives fully, wouldn't the world look very different? He said, that's crazy. And we said, you're going to do it. We said, just do it. Stop that. This is why we're talking about trust. We told you in 2012 you would have difficulty trusting, you see, because this change you've never experienced, none of you. It's different. It's big, but it's been in the works forever because there's been a balance that needs to change in your world where you start caring about one another so much more. And that's what it is. But you can't do that until you first grant that to yourself. This is why we have talked about self-love, self-acceptance, whatever it is, because that's what you have to do. Now we're going to go back to explaining more of what Roger said in our last reading, which he thought was a mistake. And we said, no, it's never a mistake. You just don't understand it. Just like the message we have on the board. He will read things that we've given him years ago, decades ago, actually. And then, oh, now that makes sense. You each do that. That's why you studied. That's why you went to schools. That's why you did all of that. So, but we wanted him to take it back further. We want him to see that you have done these kinds of changes. None of you would have any memory of this because this hasn't occurred. So, but this particular time in your world is so dynamic, and you chose to be here to help move it in, to help bring in the new world. But yeah, it's a big ask though for you to do that. You got to let go of your self-judgment. You've got to stop thinking something's wrong with you. In the program, when we spoke last, Rogers used the word differentiation. And then when he listened to the recording later, because he doesn't listen to them immediately, he will listen to them later because he doesn't remember most of what we say. And so we want to say that too, because a lot of you, he will say things to you and then you'll ask him later, what is that? Sometimes that he doesn't remember because that wasn't even him speaking. Yeah, it's weird, but that's what he's done. He's comfortable with it now. But when he said that, he said, no, you're creating something new. This is a new philosophy that we've given you. It's not new, it's just enhanced. Each of you are here to enhance something, and it is from your personal DNA, your personal evolutionary journey. You're here to complete something, and you have the access to all of those who have been in your sphere, so to speak, in your soul family, that are here to help you if you are able to open and listen to them. And you know that's true because sometimes you listen and you said, no, that can't be right. I'm not that powerful. I don't have that much. Yeah, we know you've done that. And you have to stop now because this is the change we're going to. That's the only way that you're going to embody the new world, because it is different. It has, and this has been in the work. This is not something that just happened yesterday. This has been in the work for longer than you can possibly, imagine. It's even difficult for any of you to conceive what millions of years ago might even look like. That's just not a concept. However, you do know in this life what you have not been willing to do, what you have not been willing to embrace about yourself. And we wanted you to know how important you are, which is why we use individuation and differentiation, because that's the whole entire process of evolution. Your world doesn't survive or evolve without you. What we mean is that you have to be completely different than everything else that has ever existed. Otherwise, you're not worth very much. That's a new way of hearing that, isn't it? Yeah. You're not supposed to be other people. You're not supposed to be exactly like them. And you do have gifts that have been given to you before you ever have a conscious awareness of this life. It was given to you. You did it, you see. You're sitting in a place, you have a problem. You always are sitting in a place in your life in the moment of now of a probable reality, you and your world, which is why we get so excited about doing these talks, because we know that if we keep aiding more of you to your brilliance, your world will look completely different. Not tomorrow, but next year, yeah. The following year, you'll see more of it. Because you plant things and then they begin to manifest, you see, but you have to give it time, and that's why we gave you the practice, patience, and persistence. We gave that to him so long ago. Practice, patience, and persistence. And this is, again, another time where you would do well to understand that, meaning that if you are not, each of you have all the aspects to live a magnificent, glorious life. That's the basics. You come into the world with those abilities, every single person. However, your life path has caused you to think something other than that. But that's okay, because you wanted to look at those restrictions and limitations in this life and decide to move through them. But again, we still want to point this out, because you are here at a very different time in your world, which means you decided you wanted a big change, and that big change is happening within you. So we want you to understand that's why it's been challenging. It's been scary. It's been uncomfortable. It's been unnerving. But as you come together with others, it's going to be so much better. And we told Roger, he didn't even know why we were saying this. 2 years ago, before all of this began with your pandemic, we told him what to do. We said, please create groups, because you're going to need to do that. You're going to need to come together. He had no awareness of why we were saying that, until he started saying, oh, wait a minute, we're moving from this Piscean age into this Aquarian age. We've talked about that. We've known about that in the world here, that people were supposed, the Aquarius age, that's where we all come together and life is joyous. And it could be that if you would get out of the way and start accepting yourselves. That's what we're doing. And we told Roger, we're going to have you say crazy things now, like I'm going to change the world. And we want each of you to embody that, because you have that ability. Every single person, every single one of you, you have that ability, and you've heard it forever. You go to church and your religions tell you, you have been granted everything, you have the same abilities as God. You are made in the image and likeness of God. And you say, no, that couldn't be me. I'm different. I wasn't given those things. I couldn't have done that. You see, that is the contradiction we told you were going to start to come to in this life. That is a contradiction that you're going to start to heal, to put together. See, what you're each trying to do is get to home. What's home? Home is back to what, if you call it God or Gaia or the universe, all that is, whatever it is. You always transition into a greater place than where you are in this particular life. You, again, don't need to have that and understand that now, but we will say that what you are also doing is working through old stuff. That's why it's really big this time, old garbage. We'll just call it like that, where you thought that you were not as important, you didn't have as much, you were weird, you had all these strange things going on. All of that was perfect. That's why we said we needed you. We couldn't, differentiation and individuation would not exist if you guys didn't come in and be completely different, and your world wouldn't expand into where it could be unless all of you accessed who you are. See, because when you access who you are, you come back and you put that back into the world, into the universe, whatever term, and it becomes greater. You see, it becomes greater. It doesn't split apart. Now, it looks to you that what is occurring now is that the world is splitting apart because of all the differences and all of that. That's not what's happening, and you're going to see that very quickly, very soon. What is happening is that things are being uncovered. You can't change anything you can't see. And many of you have been not seeing the truth about so many things going on in your world, and that's gone on forever. Because see, when you can control the vision of individuals, you think some people think they're more powerful than, but that never works. Never works, because your world is not set up that way. You have moved for centuries, for eons, whatever you can go back and think of. And we'll give you this little analogy, you can kind of see it, because you know that many times most of your realms were ruled by rulers, kings or queens, and they were the absolutes. And so you started embodying those precepts into your consciousness, and you carried them forward. And you made them also about different sexes. You made men more powerful than women. And then you slightly change every civilization. You say, oh, wait a minute. Maybe they're okay. Maybe I can bring those people in. Maybe I can do that. That's what you're doing, and you're doing it again now. That's why your world is shifting. You're coming into a place where you are creating more oneness, but you're going to fight about that for a little bit, because some people thought that they need to have all the power because that was the only thing that made them feel important. They had no connection to what their soul was. You do. And that's why we're speaking to you, because we know that you know this. You just maybe have not been willing to admit it or own it because it's a little crazy, a little out there. This is the thing that has held Roger back his entire life. It's thinking those things until we brought him here. We said, no, you can't do that anymore. And we had this fight with him. We explain this. We told him to put the program out. We had said, make it a decent price. He couldn't do that. He could not do that. He said, I have to know first. I have to know. Now, you each are working through your own individual restrictions. And some of them, when you uncover them, they're always going to be helpful. Let's just say that. They're always going to be helpful. But today, he's sitting with his friend at brunch. And there are two friends that he's had that for so long, more than, almost 50 years now. You see, so it's been a long time. And he said, but why aren't you doing this now? Why aren't you there? Why haven't you owned it all? Why aren't you? Because I'm doing that. We're saying this because this is what a lot of your friends and family and parents and all that have said to you. Please don't listen. Please don't listen. That's not true. There's no time where you're supposed to be anywhere. And you will accept what you're supposed to at the right time in your life and your evolutionary journey, and your age has nothing to do with it. It's you becoming willing. You see, that's all that it is. And so we said, well, we told you about this in your life operating instructions. And we could direct Roger back to finding things in there. And this is why he's becoming so different, because he did this in 2012, but he's only understanding it now, just like many of you will. You see, he couldn't accept all of that. But we told him, we said, go back and look at progression. Oh, so he went to look at progression. And then we told you, progression usually happens in increments. Increments, a little bit at a time. We also would say to you many times, and even our writings, we say we're giving you a little bit at a time, because you don't accept that you have this magnificent capability to do everything in the world. But you come to that each lifetime that you live, and your world, your society comes to that as well, because you can't separate humans and think you're going to create a whole that is powerful. It's not going to happen, but you keep figuring that out. Now, it's changed over time, because in the very beginning, you didn't even have recognition of other countries. It was kind of lost. You just lived in your particular area, and you thought, well, this is all there is. That's over. You live in a global society, and this period is meant to bring more of you together in that way. So it's not just about where you are or your life. It's about what is good for the whole. And this is why we brought up the whole thing with your pandemic. We said it's not about separating. It was meant to bring you together. And some of you just did not understand that you're each going to have different evolutionary journeys, and you're meant to bring in something different. You're not going to all agree. We told Roger to put out a quiz. He still didn't do it. We talked about it in the last talk, but we're going to do it again. Okay, so we said, now, if you look at the pandemic, ask everybody what would be their solution. And you have to come up with something that's going to work for everyone, because this is global. You only have a global pandemic when you want the entire world, the planet, to shift. And then what are you supposed to do with that? You're supposed to use it to figure out, how can we come together and figure out a solution that works? But no, what you did, but you fought with one another. You made other people wrong. You made yourselves right. None of you know. None of you absolutely know. That's the funny part. See, because we told you in 2012, you're only using this body here the entire year. We told you. All of this was just about you developing your soul, you going through this process to develop your soul, and you each will do it in different ways. We gave Roger his. He knew it. He exposed it. He said, okay, I guess because I went through all these things in my life, I'm supposed to do science and spirituality and human development. That's my particular little thing. And that's his. And you each have yours. And you feed off one another, and you take things from what we say and add it to what your higher self is saying to you. That's all that happens. And it's going to come together to get you to this place where you own your magnificence. You have genius within you, every single one of you. It's not possible for anybody to be disconnected from that, because you're connected to everything that came before. You just choose at certain times when you're going to allow that to come in, when you're going to allow that information to be made known to you. Roger, he blocked us for so long. We talked about this the other day. 2 years ago, we said, you got to stop you got to let us talk. We have so much to say. And it's going to be fun. We want you to understand that this is heavy stuff that you're moving through, because you're releasing stuff that you don't know about. You're releasing old guilt and shame and embarrassment. You have it. You would have to have it. You didn't come here new. We want you to understand that. You brought things from your families, from your ancestors, from whoever, and then but what you're supposed to do with it is make it better, you see? You're supposed to figure out, how can I take what I was given and cause it to become better? We had Roger do a video a couple of days. He forgot about it until today, though. We had him publish it. Said, my ADHD probably held me back. See, because what was happening is that everyone was looking at him. He had several meetings. This goes on all the time, and probably with you as well. All these people, they look at him and they go, why haven't you done more? Why aren't you out there? Why aren't you really large and selling so much and doing so much? And his friend today said, well, you could have just talked about it and tell everybody how great it was from the beginning. He says, I could never do that. I could never do that. He's never been able to do that, because he was disconnected from his worth, as you have been. He was disconnected from his worth and value. Now, he had a particular condition that he decided he was going to use, and that was the ADHD. See, because then it explained to him why he was disconnected from it. And we had him do that video, and so hopefully many of you will see that. Because see, when you live your life feeling disempowered, you can't believe that you created anything. You can't believe that you had something within you that could have been important or could have been successful. And that's the part that we want you to know. Every one of you have within you the ability to be incredibly successful. And we're talking about with money, because that's how you humans use things. You measure things in that way. And this is the time, this shift, many of you are meant to have much more. But you only do that when you start embodying your magnificence. And that is the abundance that's within you that you brought here. And so Roger's, no, we've told him forever. We'll one of these times we're going to have to show you these messages. We've said it. We told him about his money energy and he could not do it. We said, if you would just let go and talk about who you are and what your journey has been and what you've done and what you've accomplished, then you would help so many others. You each have that ability, but then you get caught in your shame. You see, oh, I screwed up though. I can't do that. I can't help people because I screwed up so much. Now you're going to understand why we have that last sentence on the screen. He never understood it until today, you see, because if your intention was to evolve, all the things you did were never wrong because they caused you to evolve. But many of you have been judging yourselves, and because of that, you've been holding yourself back. Now, again, there may have been other factors going on there, as we explained with Roger. He did not know that he had the ADHD, but we told him now that you've discovered that, go and forgive your mother. See, because that's what many of you are doing right now, because you're carrying things from your parents. He knows, he can see now that his mother carried this condition, as you think of it, as humans think of it. We don't think of it as a condition, but anyway, he knows his mother did that and he judged her for it because he didn't understand it. Many of you don't understand yourselves and you've judged yourselves because of that. You come to evolve, to create something new, and you do it in different ways. You do it in science, you do it in medicine and technologies, and you know, the entire fight that you all have about your vaccine, not everyone was meant to do that, of course, but you do it in different ways. But you have to see, okay, now what's going to be better for, what's going to be the best? This is our speaking here. What's going to be best for the whole? That's our particular thing in this lifetime for Roger. That's what he does. You each will do your own because we need all of those differences to come together to create a better whole. And you'll understand that eventually. But that's what's happening in your world right now, and you're going to see. And we want to say that in the next several weeks, you're going to see much more of that. Well, the next few months, you'll see much more. And you have to remember your center, your core, because things are going to look different. And you're going to be surprised. Why didn't I know that? You weren't supposed to until now. Your life is this continual exploration, you know, into your brilliance, getting to who you're meant to be in this world. And each of you are here now, and we're going to keep saying this because we know it's true. You're here now to let go of your old limitations. And it's all in your thinking. We've told you that many times. It's all in your thinking. Your power exists in your thinking. Because again, you each have access to it, but you're working through old stuff, that collective unconsciousness. We're not saying unconscious, we're saying unconsciousness because it's a collective, it's been built up forever. And so it's big, that's why it's challenging. And some people will be holding on to their identities for dear life. Well, you all have done that, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Hold on to that old idea of who you thought you were. You weren't powerful enough, you weren't that important, you didn't have enough to offer. Why do you think we gave you the story or asked you about the cat? And we're going to go back to that for those of you who didn't hear it. We had Roger put a quiz up one day and say, which cat is better? And then he said, we'll come back tomorrow and see what the answer is. And you can't make that answer be based on anything that you personally believe or think or like or whatever. No, it's not about that. Just what cat is better. And none of you could come up with an answer, because any answer that you would come up with would be subjective, meaning would come from your interpretation of what you think about your experience, your perception. So it's very subjective. But see, you've done that about your lives too, haven't you? You've said, well, wait a minute, my life wasn't as important as someone else's. I didn't do as much, so I couldn't possibly make a bigger contribution. Those people, they did so much more. Wow. No, that was never true. You have just as much. You just may not have accessed it, and that's okay, because you're in a process of actualizing. And again, it is happening at exactly the right time in your life. It is happening at the right time in your evolutionary journey. There have never been any accidents on any of this. We had the other day when Roger was reading something to a group, he pulled up a folder and we had him see something from 1983. And he wrote that in 1983. He didn't know what he was doing. He was just sitting down writing these things. He thought, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to write a book. He didn't know. He doesn't have any memory of this now. But the title of this one particular one that we wanted him to see, we gave him many of them. It was called On Growth and Development. And he says there, he writes there in the very beginning, it seems that we're always seem to be in a place where when we arrived at one place, but this is not where we're supposed to be. And then there seems to be something else that we want. There seems to be more things that we want. Yeah, that is it. You're always going to be in this state of continually evolving as long as you're in physical form, meaning as long as you're alive, as long as you're in this body this time. There's always going to be more, but you may choose to cut that off. You may think, and some people, those who get elderly will do that. Oh, I'm old and I can't do certain things. That's a state of mind. You can let go of that one too when you choose. All of you. Roger got really uncomfortable a couple of weeks ago when a nurse that he had to see from a surgery he had several weeks ago had to look at him and examining everything. He said, wow, you're going to live to be 100. He said, I don't know if I want that. But that's what they were seeing. And this is someone who went from every disease and illness you can possibly think of until here. Well, how is that possible? We're saying this because we need each of you to understand that you will move through your lives and you will use things of medicine and all of those, your ideas about that to form your completeness. And if you want your world to survive, your job here is to figure out what can I do that's going to offer something to the world that's going to be sustainable, that's going to help more people understand and help them own their journey. See, because we believe that all of them are meaningful. All of your journeys are meaningful and they have to be here. Otherwise, you could not choose. But, but intention, if you were to only, we've talked about this before, if you were only to know your intention before you do anything, you're going to start living the life that you want, and you're going to make the difference that you wanted as well. And you can always know what your intention is. There is none of you here are ever doing anything against another. It's not possible. It's just not possible, which is why we gave you the message this morning. Because see, the only way you get to self-love, oh, wow, this is good. The only way you get to self-love is you start loving other people. Because you're all the same. You're all one. How many times can you hear that from your religious and all that? You heard it forever, but see, you don't believe that. We were having a discussion the other night, and this is fun. We're just bringing this back to Roger. He was speaking with his brothers, and okay, this is sports. And we want you to understand this. This is a good analogy. Okay, they were speaking sports, and they were talking about which teams this one was for, and that one, and it was different. And then we said, well, it depends on where you are at the time. You form alliances to what is the closest to you. And so when you think of your sports teams, and those of you who don't play sports, but you'll get the picture of this. Okay, so when you're in high school, your high school team is the best one, right? Because it's your high school. Then you go to college. Now it's expanded, it's bigger. Now your college is the best one. Oh, but now you're older. And so now your city is the best one, right? Oh, wait, it's bigger. Now your country is the best one. Now that's where we are. We've expanded it out. And that is it true. But see, then each of you, which is why we gave you the message this morning, you get to that place where you see that all of you are the best ones. but you're in the continual phase of evolution till you get there. But that's why your world evolves. It may seem like this is going to go away, that this is what you're going through right now, but we're saying it's not. It is not. It's already been set in place because it's nothing that you have anything to do with. You can look at the construction of your world and your galaxies and all of that. It's all in alignment, and this change has been in works forever. There was an aspect of it, as we told Roger, started in for him in 2012 in this particular way, but it was actually beyond that. But we're just using this as a time period for you to get a frame of reference, basically. So you each have these, what we call mile markers, or places in your life where you come to this awareness and you go, wow, this is different. And so as he was speaking to his friends earlier, he was saying, don't you understand? As he's yelling at them, I couldn't have done it before. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I had. That's what we're saying to each of you. And that's the only reason we created our program. It's the only reason, because we know what you could do if you were to discover what's within you, and if you were to let go of your judgment, your self-judgment. That's all that it is. And again, we want you to, this is a challenging one and it's going to be for many of you, because you have to let go of old stuff. And some of them will be relationships that you've had. Some of them will even be within your families, and all of that, or friends. And it's going to be different things. You're going to let go of some of your attachments. We gave you much of that in 2012 as well, about your attachments, that you have to start letting go of them. And more of your attachments are to your littleness. That's really what it is. More of your attachments are to your old self. And that's why we're saying you have to let that go to embody the new world, because it is different. We just truly want each of you to understand, which is why we've driven Roger so crazy, because you're sitting at a place, you always are at a place where you have probable realities. I want you to understand that. Probable realities. That means that your actions now, your thoughts now, your deeds now will create the future, you see? So that's why we say it's not guaranteed, because even though you have complete autonomy and sovereignty in how you would operate your lives, you don't always go in the direction that would serve you, basically because of fear, blame, and doubt. That's what we're going to explain in the training. We're going to have Roger do that because we want you to understand how those things have been controlling your life, and you haven't understood it. If you look at that last sentence on the sheet, though, you will eventually, because we'll tie all that together eventually. You have this beautiful life that you were meant to live, and it's just as good as anyone else you could ever think of. You don't get there right away because it's a process. It takes time. We'll take Roger through reprogramming his entire life. That's what our whole program is. He had to reprogram everything, and started from a young age too. You each do it differently, but for him it was challenging. But now it's purposeful, you see? Now it makes sense. And that is going to be the case for every single one of you. You're going to understand how your life has led you to a place of magnificence that you never knew was coming, but it will. And this is why we're talking about trust. That's why we gave you that. We knew where you would be today. You're kind of on the seesaw almost, oh yeah, I'm good. Oh, now I'm down here. Oh, I'm up here. That's where you are. It's okay. It's going to move that way for a little bit. Then you're going to settle into it more. And yes, you are incorporating other, if you want to use dimensions, you are doing that. And you will feel that at times where you kind of feel like you're not even in your body or in this world, but that's okay. You're going to settle into who you're meant to be. Every soul is here to do that. Again, there are others, we know many of you are thinking, well, wait a minute, those other folks aren't thinking about this. Yes, they are. They just don't have a conscious awareness of it, but their higher selves are always guiding them as well, just like you. You're just on different paths, but all of your paths come together, you see, within a lifetime to cause evolution. And that's why we say when you start letting go of your ideas of not being worthy and all of that, your world evolves. That's what happens. That's the purpose of knowing the concept behind individuation, understanding that. Because that's the message we gave you. Said if you understood that one, you would never hold yourselves back again. See, because when you don't understand that one, you think that you're supposed to be exactly like someone else, and that is never true. None of you will ever find your true happiness and success if you're looking for that model, because it does not exist. And this is we're saying this now because that is the thing that has held Roger back so long. We don't, because he said, wait a minute, I don't sound like the other people who channel. I don't do the things the way they do. We said, good. You're not supposed to. You're different. You're supposed to be. Each of you. There are no hierarchies of souls. We've said that. And again, the reason that we've said those words to you over and over again throughout these talks is because you're going to see that shift starting to happen. And then you're going to see a lot of division and resistance to that. That's what's going on. Now, Roger's entire life, we're going to help you because he's done this worse than you probably. We'll see. Roger's entire life has been resistance. And we can take you back and show you where every physical ailment that he has experienced and just every single particular thing coalesced into his physical body, because you each have the ability to do that. It came into his physical body. He can go back now and kind of pinpoint where those things were, but he didn't have any awareness of that because as a child, he was having visions and seeing things that he couldn't understand. And then it started showing up in his knees where he couldn't walk. He's walking down the street. He would just his knees would just give out. Why is that happening to a kid? He couldn't figure it out, but he can now. Because he went through his life and he put these things together. He was able to actualize self-healing. He was able to do it. He can do it so much now. He knows that process, but still he has blocks and the whole bit, which is why he made a different choice than many other people when it came to your medicine and your vaccines, because he lived a very different experience. And this is the thing that many of you have not come to understand. There was something in your news that many of you may not know, but when you had this whole big fight, and we told you again that none of this really matters, but you're using it to come to own who you are, and to understand others, because that's what you really have to do. And when there was this one guy, Joe Rogan, yes, who was speaking of things, and there was a big uproar, and the musicians, Joni Mitchell and James, and Neil Young, yeah, those were the first ones. I will remember. They removed their music, and everybody's going, "Oh wow, why'd they do that?" See, they both experienced polio. They had a different perspective. They lived in Canada, and they couldn't get a vaccine, and they had to suffer through that. So they knew from a very different place. This was important. That's why they said it. Each of you are going to figure out a way. This is the question that we asked you all, to find more solutions to your collective dilemmas. And that is the human dilemma that we mentioned. That's what we gave you in our message this morning, the human dilemma, because you've been going through it forever. Because you think that if you can make others less, then you're more powerful. And if you become more powerful, you have to put others down. None of that is ever true, but it's okay. You're figuring that out now. Each of you are perfect in where you are and what you came to bring in your journey. Now, you may find out later that what you believed was not correct, but that's great. Because now you've evolved. Nothing wrong. You're going to figure it out, each of you. And you do it together. And the only thing that survives is the love. The only thing that survives in your world that exists is the love. And we're going to keep talking about the contradictions that you've had. The things that you're working through in this lifetime, all of you collectively in this restructuring, are your contradictions of saying that everybody's equal, but then no, these people aren't. Or saying that my way is right, but their way isn't. You're going to figure all that stuff out. But when you do, you will end up with a really wonderful world, as long as you are not using judgment. That's the challenge. You ascend to your actualized self when you're able to remove your judgment. We've given you so many messages on that. We could write another book. We have several books. We've given you many of them already. They just haven't been put into form, but Roger knows that they're there. You see, you each have that. You have a wealth of knowledge and wisdom within you. We're going to go back to this because when we started telling Roger how we put together this program, he says that's not possible. And we said, yes, it is. And everyone has the same ability. But you just can't believe it. We told him, we put all of these folks in there. We took him back to Martin Luther. That's why we kept saying in the other messages, please go back 500 years. We're explaining the shift that is happening in your world currently, because you can see these things repeating again. All of them. And then we had them go through many other centuries to see the repetition. So in the program, we said we're going to use Martin Luther. Now we're saying this because this is, you each come in to do something different, but you pick up certain things from this, but this is, our program has these things infused in it because it came through Roger. Any information that you're going to hear from a channel, from a spirit channel or guide or influence or whoever it is, has to be filtered through them. And it's no different for Roger. He has to filter through what his experience is, but we'll tell you what that is. And we'll tell you what he has now come to understand, why he's operated this way, but his mission has always been. And so he put in the energy of Martin Luther, you see, because it was about change. It was about reforming. It was about being different, breaking down the old norms of thinking that there's only one being who was leading all of you. And that was never true. But you've just taken that one and changed it over time. So that was the first part that we did. And then we said, oh, but he thought it was Martin Luther King Jr. We said, yes, that would be a natural transition, because that's what you each do. You take the energies of those who have come before, you have access to them, and then you say, oh, they created this, now I'm going to make it a little bit better. But you stop because you think you don't have the ability to do that. You do. Everyone does. And so then we said, we gave you that, but then we gave you Carl Jung. See, because he came after. So he took the advantage of all the information that had come before, and he came up with something new. And then we gave you Maslow because he was involved in all of them. He knew too. Why do you think, Roger, we had you go back and look at Einstein? Because see, he was an influencer of them as well. They were all in the same club. Because you use your science and what you develop as minds, and then you come in, you individuals now, and you take that stuff and you make it better. You add something to it. And we said, what you're going to do now is you're going to take that stuff and you're adding spirituality to it, because that's what where you're all moving to. So you took all the science, you took the all of that, and now you add the spirituality to it, and you know the process of human development. Wow. Do you think that would be worth something, Roger? We said to him. Well, everyone else said that to him. He goes, why aren't you charging more? We're saying that because there are many of you here who are in that boat. It's different now, though. You see, this is where the shift of the power and the wealth and income inequality, we've spoken of that often, is because that's a shift. You each are meant to, when you go into your heart center, when you operate from who you know you're supposed to be, you're going to start allowing the floodgates to open, and you're going to have more abundance coming into your life. You know, that's hard for you to understand, but it takes time to let go, to change that program, which is why, again, we set up our program in that way, so you would be doing something consistently, because that's how you each learn. You have science that has explained that to you. You don't change overnight, but every idea that exists can be approved upon now, which is why you are here. We took Roger into something many years ago where we said, we want you to start using this, which was a 66-day pledge. We had him find this study that was done on that, saying that the way that humans mainly change, develop, or change a habit or develop a habit or ability or whatever it is, we were all taught that maybe it was 30 days, you should be able to do that. And we said, no, please understand your science is advanced beyond that. And they did a study and they showed that the average was like 66 days, which is why we kept telling them we want people in programs to stay longer. You know that you're not going to get it done instantly. Look at your life. You're only understanding now, you're 71, and we've given you all this information over the years. We're not beating him up. We're saying this because we want you to understand you each have done this to a degree, and your judgment about it is never helpful because it's counterintuitive. If you judge yourself, then you're discounting your life, and that's never, you can't do that. You just didn't understand what you were doing, but now you will. If you put in the effort, and as Roger has done, to understand it, you will understand yours. You each have these magnificent lives that you're meant to unfold now. That's why we said that in the message this morning. If you didn't see it, you were meant to actualize now. You're never in an accidental place, ever. Just takes you some time to accept that and understand it. But we're going to make it fun because we're going to keep going. We have given Roger several, we're going to say this too, we're just going all out today. Okay, we've given several messages that said, we think we've finally broken you. Then we didn't. Because he went back to thinking the old stuff. Then we do it again. Okay, we think we've finally broken you this time. Well, then he'd suffer a little bit more. No, I'm not going to be ready to go there. Not ready to do that yet. And then we did it again. But this time we finally did it. We gave him too much proof. We showed so much stuff, which is what we're going to do with each of you as we keep moving, because we know what you have. We know what's within you. But it's the doubt. That's the biggest one. And so it is challenging, which is why we told you we want you to rely on trust. Trust is a different kind of an idea, you see, because when you are using trust, when you're embodying just the idea of trust, you can't worry at the same time. You just say, okay, I don't understand. I don't know what's going on right now. I just know trusting that it's going to be for my highest good, which it always is. But you're contradicting yourselves, you see, when you hold a different thought, when you hold a contrary thought to that belief. You each are so magnificent. And we're going to, we do this all the time. We had him look at the guest list so we could get some energies of some of the folks that were here. And okay, so we'll do a little bit here. There's some who have felt so odd. You felt so strange. You have felt so out of place. And we want to say that's the differentiation and the individuation that we so needed in the world. And we're so happy that you're here. That's what we're going to say. You thought it was weird and crazy, and no, it's not. Because people need perspective. People need to see something different, you see. And then there are others of you, oh, there's a bunch of you here who think that you've missed it, that you have screwed up so much that you have missed your time to become successful, become the person you were supposed to be. We said, no, that's why you're here now, because you wanted the experience of the restructuring. See, because there's much more energy available in the universe galactically that you can use now, you can harness to use, because it's more favorable for you now. It's more favorable for your loving side to be seen. It's more favorable for your artistic weirdness to come out, because that's what the world wants to see. And that's what the world needs. It is totally okay now for you to be this incredibly empathic, loving person, while you're knowing that that's valuable, and now you're going to get money for it. You're going to receive money for it. Because that's the shift. You're part of that shift. It has to occur unless you actively stop it. And you do have that ability. Each of you. You could decide, okay, we're going to stop right here. We're not going to actualize anymore. We're not going to love ourselves. We're not going to move anymore. And then you're going to have a very different reality. Now, we will say you'll have some time. You'll have some struggles with that one, though, because your world has moved in a new place and you're catching up to it. That's what's going on. And again, it is the thing that you have done throughout the existence of humans on the planet. And this glorious time is going to reward you in ways that you cannot imagine at now. But you're going to need to stay in your center. Let's just say it that way, remembering your center, because there will be other things, more revelations, we'll call it that. There'll be many revelations, because they can't happen The world cannot change unless the revelations happen. And this one we've given you, we're going to talk about it individually and then collectively. You will tend to not look at things in your lives and expect them to magically change. Your world has done that too. See, if you do it individually, can you see how that kind of builds up to the collective, and then the world starts doing that? And so then if you don't look at anything, you think it's not going to change. No, it just gets worse. That's all. Until you say, okay, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to look at this and say, we've proven that. We given Roger that, but he did not know. He knew within himself, but he had to see it with other people first to know that it was valid. He's never been able to sell anything, to put anything out, which he didn't know that it was going to produce a result. And other people, his friend said to him this morning, and this is exactly what happened. He said, why didn't you do like all the other people? Just say it. Just sell it. Just tell them that it's all great. Just do it. I said, there's no part of me that could ever do that. I know I've held myself back, and I could have had a lot more money, could have done a lot more. That's what he said. But he could not do that. That was his DNA. His role this time was not about that. And each of you have an individual part to play in the evolution and the restructuring of your world. And that's where you are now. You are looking at that thing in front of you. We don't know what it is specifically, but it is there. And it's wonderful if you stop judging yourself. Again, we want you to understand this. The thing that has gone on most recently in your world has been, because you need a big thing when you go through a shift, you need something. Until this time you use a pandemic. You've done that many times. You've done that throughout centuries. And we've told you, if you look back at other eras, you could see where you've done that and millions of people died. So we understand how this is disconcerting if you have no memory of what's gone on before. But we want to say that what's going on now is a bigger shift, where you're moving in a world that you're going to be so thrilled with later. Maybe not you, but your grandkids will for sure. Because see, that's how evolution happens. You're doing something now that's going to create this world that's going to be manifest. It's going to start. But it's for most of you, if you'll still be here in the next 2-3 years, you'll see what we're talking about. Most of you will be. Unless you decide to check out. Some people are deciding to check out because, see, you think that if you just leave and let me just kill myself and go away, and then it'll be all better. No, you're eternal beings. So you'll just do it in a different way. You'll just move through it, but you'll have more ability because you'll understand it then as well. Okay, we're giving you way more than we took right into such big picture stuff that might be a little bit too much at this moment. So we're going to bring it back to where you are now. Where you are now is in a place where you're going to make a difference in the world. That's all you need to understand. You're going to make a difference, and that difference will be shown up within you and rewarded within you. But what you have to do is to acknowledge those gifts that you felt within you forever. You've known them, that you denied, that you said, no, it's not there. It's not me. And you thought you had the imposter syndrome. We told you that doesn't exist. It's just something you made up as another excuse to hold yourselves back. You can let that go. It's a different world. So all you have to do moving forward now, it's going to be a challenge, but what you have to do now is notice. We're going to give you mindfulness. Notice when you're saying those limiting things to yourself and say, okay, I'm going to change that. Notice when you're believing that you can't do something and say, no, I can. I'm more capable. Simply because of being in the world, that's all. You each are so valuable now. And we gave you that message months ago. You didn't know what we were talking about. We said, you have now become more valuable. Because the world had shifted already. We knew that, but it's going to take a while for you to understand it, for it to be recognized and manifested and seen in the world. But each of you have become more valuable. That's why you're here. You are here in the world to offer something new. And the way that you're going to do that, and we're going to keep helping you because we're going to keep doing this. And the way you're going to do that is to decide you have this brilliance within you, that you are magnificent, that you were given just as much as everyone else. But on this journey, you're finding more of it. On this life that you're moving, you've set up these things to find more of it. We heard Roger hear something else. We're going to give you this one, then we're going to go in. So we do want to speak. We're here, we're feeling the energy. We want to speak to more of you. But on Roger's way home, we had him hear a video where he's spoken, someone was speaking of the same things that we have given you about choosing your parents and all of that, because none of you believe that you've actually done that, but you have. And so this person was saying, now ask them why you did that, why you chose them. See, because if you do that, you'll look at them, and we've given you many processes like this, but we want to hear it again. Because see, when you look at it, you'll see, oh, wait a minute, my mother was like this, and my father was like that. Now, what was I supposed to gain from that? That's all we're going to give you. See, because if you're just to do that and let go of your judgments of them, because you pick them, all the stuff you say about them, exactly the stuff that you wanted to change within you. That's all. That's why you chose them. They're exhibiting it to you. They're showing you. That's why. So now you're going to understand that, because you're moving into a new place in your life, and you're going to start thanking them, because all the challenges they provided for you, we're saying that purposefully, provided for you, have given you now the ability to change that and become magnificent beings and own your genius. And we're going to keep helping you do that, because we're going to keep talking about this in a way that you're going to hear it. And your higher self is going to then just keep guiding you into actualizing who you are meant to be, because we know it's something brilliant. We are going to open now for questions, because otherwise we could keep going on for hours. So we have so much for you.
All right, so you guys know the drill by now. I am going to send out invitations to promote you all to panelists, so you can ask your questions directly. I am sending out those invitations right now.
The first judgment that we want you to release is that of yourself. Some of you are thinking that possibly you've made mistakes in these last couple of years, or you've been doing things the incorrect way, or going about it, and you got all confused with all of the discord and the chaos that was going on. No, you didn't. All you were doing was just finding yourself. You were just finding your way. And so any kind of judgment that you might have right now is just totally counterproductive. Again, and when you think about this, and you'll understand why we had that last sentence on this writing.
Okay, if you have a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand, or you can let me know in the chat box, or you can raise your virtual hand. Does anybody have a question? Yes, Catherine.
Actually, I don't have a question, Stan. I just, I was reading one of the emails, and it mentioned how Roger had suffered from severe depression all his life and didn't realize, and for many, many years. And I just wanted to say how sorry I am that he went through that. I know how difficult it is, and I think mine started when I was a teenager, but wasn't diagnosed till I was 30. But I can't imagine being a small child and having to deal with that. It's very painful, and so I just wanted to express my compassion for his difficulties, and be glad that for him that he has been able to overcome that.
Thank you. And we must say something to you, because he's completely fine with it now. He understands his purpose, but we're one speaking to you, because see, you thought that his suffering at that age was really challenging, but see, you doing it at the teenage years was even more challenging. And we want you to appreciate that, because you were willing to move through that, because at those teenage years is where you really want to fit in, and you want to kind of be like everyone else, and you could not do that. And you felt out of place. But it was okay, because you're coming into it now. What you're moving into is coming about because of that particular period in your life. And we're so glad that you acknowledge that now, because see, you're going to understand, and your pain around that experience, that time, the pain that you felt around that time in your life is now going to start to diminish, because you're going to help so many others understand that transition that you moved through.
Yeah, absolutely. I've really been seeing that lately, that I have been um, talking to people and met people that just came out and, said, yeah, they suffered, from depression too. And I've always been open about it. And so I really have felt a need to go out and do something and share what I'm learning about it, and also how it, besides medication, which I've been on for a very long time, the alternatives to it, looking at nutrition and things like that. So right now I'm just kind of collecting a lot of information and reaching out to just, comfort people that are struggling with it like I am.
Okay. Let's give you this as well. Usually, I mean, there are many different causes of which one might experience depression, and we can look at external forces and causes and all of that. But typically, it is because of some denial or restriction of the self. And sometimes you come into the world and you have energies, you have memories to things that went before that you can't really understand. And you can't really interpret them and put them together in a way. And so it becomes a little frightening, and you just want to run from it a little bit. And so when you keep doing that consistently, then you start to feeling depressed because you're denying yourself. And then that kind of keeps going, you see? And then you formed it as a pattern, as a habit. And so the only way to change that is to start to change your thoughts and your patterns. All of your perceptions, your experience, your life it begins in your thoughts. So, but when you understand that that's the power that you have, then there has to be something that works for you where you can change your brain every single day, because it has to be consistent. It has to be all the time, which is why we made our program that way. It has to be something that you're doing all the time that starts to shift things. But we must say, you are on that path right now, and it's so good. And we're so pleased that you're doing it. And you will help so many others because you're willing to talk about it. And okay, one more. You talked about it before, all right? You spoke about it before, but not to the depth that you want to talk about it now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you will. So be patient. Just allow that to come about. You will. And we're just so pleased that you're doing it. We're just so pleased you're on because that's going to help so many. So thank you for that.
And thank you for the feedback.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much. Terry, you were next.
Hi, I just, this message is so powerful, and I've got so many people in my life who need to hear it. How do I help other people get this message and really believe it?
Well, it'll be easier now. Okay, it's going to be easier. It's going to become easier for many of you for a lot of reasons. One, it's easier for Roger now because he had to come to believe it. Let's go back. We want you to understand this as you each will relate this into your life in different ways. We don't know how yet, but you will get this. He struggled with understanding what he was doing for years and years and years. We wanted him to be a dramatic example of being 71 years old, going through it all this time, because the entire time what he was doing was like, no, I couldn't be me. That kid, let me resist. Let me not look at that. And so you move through your lives and you keep doing that. Now he's at a place where we took him back to putting together the beginning of the program, because this is not all of it. We just had him do part of it. But merely him going back and doing this work again, looking at it, which totally surprised him, by the way, but it reinforced it, you see. And so then it changed. And then he says, oh, wait a minute, now I'm getting it. You each are doing that. Every single one. And so what we said, we want to, because this is the time we want him to go bigger. So we said, okay, we want, first of all, or to invite everybody else to come to the talks that we're doing, but we want to make it, when we did our program, for instance, we said we want more people to do that, but we want everybody to participate in ways that makes it more equal, because that's what your world is moving into. We want everyone to participate in that. It makes it bigger. Then they become, so when people start doing the work on themselves, then you start to believe. But it sometimes takes, depending on what you've done, how you've programmed yourself, it may take a little bit of a while, for you to completely change. However, we proved that you could do it quickly. That's what happened with people when they did the program, when they stayed with it. It was they changed. And that's what was surprising to him. He didn't understand, like none of you understand. You couldn't understand, let's just say that, please accept. You couldn't understand completely who you are because there's always more. You're always evolving. You're always moving into new places. And sometimes it gets a little frightening and then you hold back. But we're going to keep moving him in a direction where he brings more in. And what more of you could do, however, is share. He shares some videos, but he hasn't asked others to share. We would love for others to share these videos to those that you feel would benefit. Because see, we want them to understand how perfect they are, how wonderful they are. And the more of you who collectively go into that area, can't you see how that would change and your world would be looking quite different than what it is now? Quite different.
Okay, clarity.
So many things, but I will focus on one thing. Karma. I'm such a different sort of soul around this community. Because of the way I express myself freely, I'm not inhibited. Mm-hmm. And my home was attacked Thursday evening. 3 young men, I just caught a glimpse of them as they were driving away, threw eggs at the front of my home. Mm-hmm. And at first I thought it's because of my sexual orientation. And then I suffered through Thursday night, woke up in a total cold sweat, and I still didn't have the answer Friday morning, but the creative part of me came through and it reassured me that I'd be okay. Mm-hmm. And then yesterday, I had a vision that, no, it wasn't that. It's your neighbors across the street. And we were trying to tell you, don't do that. Don't do that. And you kept doing it. In fact, you were mocking the guy to yourself going, we don't want those. We don't want those. Mm-hmm. And I did it anyway. And they were the people that came and threw the eggs at my house.
Mm-hmm. You know why you wanted that?
No.
Okay. We gave you a message about this a long time ago. And we couched it differently. We said you needed the opposition. And then we said right after that, you never need anything, but we thought you would appreciate that word. We said you needed the opposition. You see, because when something comes at you like that, it feels like an attack or someone is disparaging you or whatever it is, you have to then own who you are. You have to come back in and own who you are and say, no, that's not true. And so each of you, you're directing all of these. And so when you've had these presences, when you've had these ways of being that you have not completely embodied and allowed to be yours, you might invite in, we're talking law of attraction to some of you haven't learned how you use that, but law of attraction would bring in just the right incident to say, here, let's throw some eggs at you. How do you feel about yourself now? And then you say, oh, wait a minute, I'm not going to allow that to matter because I am here in this lifetime to own myself. And I know that I'm valuable. And I know that I came to offer something that was going to be meaningful to not only just myself, but to the rest of the world. And if I move through that, I'm going to honor who I am. And then also I'm going to see that these people, they just don't know what they're doing. They're just a little lost. And so the way that they're finding their excitement is by attacking another. Many people, we told you, that's the power struggle that many of you are moving through right now because you don't feel power in your own right. So if you can do something to another, then you own who you are. It doesn't work, but you keep trying that. So give yourself a pat on the back because you brought in a wonderful experience, even though it was painful, even though it was uncomfortable, because emotional, we know moving through those places is emotionally uncomfortable. We want you to understand that. But once you do it, wow, you become free.
The other lesson, well, there's many lessons, but the biggest lesson I think was I didn't want to call the police, and I didn't want to identify as a victim because there are all kinds of people that are dealing with violence every day, every day, every day. And then yesterday morning, a woman walked by who had, I wrote a song about it, doing the walk of shame. Her boyfriend had assaulted her and she was going for a walk. And it reminded me that, no, women aren't safe just because they're women. And there's a lot of work to be done there about violence.
Well, with all of you, with everyone, that's what you're moving through now. And again, that's why we gave you the message this morning that you're all trying to get to self-love, you see, but sometimes your ways are a little distorted. And then most of those ways have been over time. Again, we're giving you big picture stuff, so stay with us. Over time, it has been subjugating certain people. We told you it's been first it was women, then you do races, then you do all kinds of, it just becomes different, which is why we gave you the sports analogy, you see. It becomes different. But this time you're moving into another realm of your existence where more of you will start to understand that the old ways of trying to actualize yourselves do not work. It's taking, stealing, lying, none of those things ever work because they aren't sustainable, you see. And those are the lies and everything that have gone on, that have appeared in your world, are going to start to be revealed because you can't move into the world that you wanted to create while you're not telling the truth to yourselves and to others. That's just where you are right now. However, we just want to say you have opened up a wonderful realm for yourself now. And many of you are going to have to confront something else again. Okay, and we want you to understand the divisions that are happening in the world are you're going to see them in your individual experience, but they're meant to cause you to own who you are. You see, you're seeing it because you wouldn't even see that stuff if it didn't matter. You wouldn't have experiences unless they were pertinent to your life, to your journey. Well, many of you don't, so many of you don't know certain things that are happening in your world because they're not pertinent to what your experience is. But there's so much going on you're so unaware of. And the change that we're speaking of is going on all over your world. This is a global shift, as we've said. That's why it's different. And it's big and it's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, I do believe that is it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We want to leave another message for everyone. And when you might hear this particular recording, you are moving through something in your life right now because it's right in front of you. And it's something that you have always wanted. And even though it's challenging right now, it might be, we're saying, if you start to let go, just take our advice, let go of your judgment, your self-judgment, you never did anything wrong, you're in the right place, and you meant to be here right now to actualize, we're saying that. And as you start accepting that day by day, you will see your life and your world will look quite different. We love you so much and thank you so much for being here. And we are complete. Hi. That felt fun. It'll be wonderful to hear it later.
Yeah, saying bye.
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, so glad you're all here. Great. We will have the replay out. Oh, and someone, and I stand, I forgot to mention this, I just saw someone said, I wanted to know if we could put subtitles in a different language on there. I don't know if that's possible. We'll look at that. They want, she said, she wished it could have been in French. She could this, and I know there's a way to start adding that. So we're going to make some changes and add some stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Great. All right, you guys. Thank you all so much. I'll see you soon. Have a great rest of your weekend.
You too. Bye.
Thank you, Stan.